Who is going to transfer out of Ohio State, whether it be now or in the spring portal? We're going to look at the roster and see who the candidates are for that. Now, if you've been paying any attention to college football lately, you know there was a huge transition in the transfer portal, which is Caden Proctor transferring out of Iowa. He is expected to transfer back to Alabama, which is leading many people into kind of this craziness of could there be others transferring back to Alabama? The thing that is also feeding some of this craziness is Josh Pate's tweet that was tweeted after Caden Proctor had already entered the transfer portal. He said Caden Proctor returning to Alabama isn't even top 3 of wildest portal rumblings I've heard this week. Utter chaos awaits post spring. Now you can take that tweet for whatever you want it to mean. Is it Josh Pate just trying to clickbait a little bit? I tend to believe that's kind of what Josh Pate does, not taking shots at him, but sometimes Josh Pate does take rumblings or rumors that he's heard and puts them out there in such a way that has mystery to it. However, he could also not be wrong. He could also be correct that there are some big fish who are going to be entering the transfer portal come up this spring or even right now, considering the vast amount of openness with the transfer portal, with the lack of control that the NCAA has on college football right now. One of the biggest things Ohio State fans are wondering about is Caleb Downs. Is Caleb Downs going to be transferring back to Alabama from Ohio State, just like his previous teammate, Caden Proctor, is transferring back to Alabama from Iowa? Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at some of the players who might consider transferring. And I'm going to tell you whether I would be surprised by it, what I think about the possibility of them. We're going to go position by position. And when we get to a position, I may not mention every single player in that position room. I may just mention some, but at the end of the day, I'm going to try to mention as many players as I can and give a note on them. Let's start with the quarterback room. The quarterback room, I'd like to make it clear, we know Devin Brown is not going anywhere. I'm not a coward. I don't live in my parents' basement. Devin Brown is sticking around. Don't worry about that. Okay. It is possible that we could see Keenholz go somewhere else, but I don't think it's very likely. I think he is in line to get a shot at the position, maybe a quarterback battle next year, or I also think that he could be in somewhat of a battle this year as well. I still think Will Howard is most likely the leader. However, there are more rumblings about Devin Brown and also possibly Lincoln Keenholz being in the battle as well. I think the Lincoln Keenholz probably understands well enough that it's just not his time right now, and his best option is to continue to stay put and learn at Ohio State. Then we get to the two freshmen, Julian Sayin or Aaron Nolan. There have been all kinds of rumors about Aaron Nolan being homesick and is Aaron Nolan feeling okay? And there are even some Buckeye podcasts out there saying that Aaron Nolan wasn't doing the things he should do. Somebody even said that Aaron Nolan went on a trip back home on the weekend because he was so homesick and he could not stand being away from Georgia anymore. I remind you, just like I will remind you about the Caleb Downs stuff coming up, these are just rumors, and even though there may be a hint of truth to them, typically rumors are made bigger than what they actually are to try and get people interested in them and to sensationalize them. I would be surprised if Aaron Nolan were to transfer. If we see him transfer, it could happen. I'm not saying it's not possible. 5 quarterbacks in one QB room is a lot of quarterbacks. However, I would still be surprised if we saw him transfer this spring portal. The next one is running backs. Running backs is another position that we have to be a little weary of because of the Tony Alford incident with him leaving for that team up north not too long ago. Treveyon Henderson is one that I immediately thought about, but after listening and recalling what Treveyon Henderson said about coming back, I'm not all that much concerned. He's a spiritual kid, so at the end of the day, if he feels some kind of calling or some kind of spiritual awakening coming to him from Ann Arbor, I guess that could possibly happen. He's not really one to seem to be impulsive like that, but you never know. Kingston Viliama was a linebacker who basically said that he felt like God told him to go to Notre Dame, even though he said he kind of wanted to go to Ohio State. He felt like God was calling him to Notre Dame. So take that for what it's worth, but that is somewhat of the situation that happened with him. And all I'm saying is that with some of these things, you can never really predict it. I would still be shocked. I would still be shocked if treveyon Henderson left Ohio State. Another one, Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins was recruited by treveyon Henderson and by Ryan Day. I feel like at this point, treveyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins are a package deal. And one of the reasons why those guys are both here is because they want to stick together. So I'm not really worried about Quinshon Judkins. Another one being Dallin Hayden. I've heard some of the media with some insider knowledge say that Dallin Hayden might actually be happier now that Tony Alford is gone because he might not have been totally okay with how he was redshirted and utilized and things like that. So take that for what it's worth. But at the end of the day, I don't really have concerns about Dallin Hayden. He's going to be the bell cow back in this running back room next year. Sam Williams-Dixon, he's an Ohio kid. I'm not concerned about him leaving. The one player that I will say that I think it might happen with, and I'm not saying that it will, but James Peoples. James Peoples, he's young. He just got to college for the first time, and he just lost his coach, the guy who recruited him, the guy he was closest to coming into Ohio State. He just lost him, and he's gone to another school. And so that could be a temptation for James Peoples. People are going to make a big deal about who he's following on social media, all these kinds of things. Guys are impulsive with their social media. They don't make the same impulsive decision with social media like they do and where they are going to spend the 4 years of their life playing football. So I'm not really concerned about it. Do I think it's possible? Sure. But I would be surprised if James Peoples were to leave Ohio State and go connect up in Ann Arbor with Tony Alford. Next is wide receivers. I got to admit, the wide receiver room is the most loaded room, and I wouldn't be surprised if we lost a depth piece or two. Guys like Emeka Ibuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, Jeremiah Smith, those guys I feel like are locked in. I can't see them going anywhere, especially if Brian Hartline is here. Jaden Ballard is an interesting one to think about, possibly with him not having very much playing time. He's kind of used up a good amount of his eligibility. He seems bought in at Ohio State, so I don't think it would happen, but you never know. Julian Fleming kind of seemed like he was bought in as well, so it could be one of those situations where he feels like he needs to leave rather than he wants to leave. We'll have to see from here. Mylan Graham, I don't even think he's at Ohio State yet. I don't think he comes until the summer, so not worried about him. Keon Graves could be buried on the depth chart, so it might happen. Bryson Rogers, he did enter the portal last year, but he actually came back to Ohio State, withdrew from the portal. So unless something has changed there to make him upset or bring him, up the same issues that he had before, I don't see him going into the portal. We could lose somebody that maybe none of us think about, or somebody that's just so buried in the depth chart, kind of like we lost a few players the other year where they went off. One of them went to Auburn, the other one went to Iowa, a few guys like that. But overall, I'm not too concerned about losing anybody impactful for this year. Tight ends and offensive line, Will Kuzmarek, he just got here. I can't see him leaving. Jelani Thurman, if Jelani Thurman gets buried on the depth chart, maybe. But apparently, Jelani Thurman, Keon Bailey are close, or Keenan Bailey, they are close. Apparently, Jelani Thurman is making good strides behind the scenes. So, and let's not forget, he also started the bowl game this year. He was the first tight end in there for that. So, obviously, this coaching staff has some belief in Jelani Thurman. I don't think we'll see him transfer. If he does, I wouldn't say that I'm shocked. But at the end of the day, I also wouldn't say it's going to happen. And I don't think most other people would say he will either. G. Scott Jr., the staff seem to be really embracing him. G. Scott Jr., the staff seems to be really embracing him this offseason. So I'm not too concerned about him. I really don't have any concern. I would be shocked. I would be surprised if he were to leave. The offensive line, everybody seems to be bought in there. We might lose a few depth pieces. Austin Saravel, Zen Mikowski, George Fitzpatrick, maybe some guys like that. Josh Joshua Padilla. I mean, maybe some guys like that, but at the end of the day, I don't see us losing any offensive linemen. If we do, it'll most likely be because of depth this season, and they're trying to get on the field and play. But nobody that would really impact the team this year. The defensive line. This is the room that I feel like is the most locked in. There is one guy that I have a bit of concern with, but not much, a bit. And it's because of something that happened at the end of last season. Kenyatta Jackson, one of the backup defensive ends, the two deep with Caden Curry. He put out a tweet last year that said decisions, ... which led most Ohio State fans to believe he had a decision to make on whether or not he was going to stay at Ohio State or move on. If he stayed last cycle, I imagine he'll stay again. I can't imagine that something would happen this spring to lead him to believe he's not going to have a home at Ohio State. I suppose maybe he gets buried on the depth chart. He feels like he needs to move on if somebody passes him, but I don't see anybody who is ready to pass him. Maybe Edric Houston, but Edric Houston, he's still a true freshman. I would like to think Kenyatta Jackson would have enough of an edge over him to stay in front of him, but we'll see. If things have not gotten better from his decision tweet, then it's possible. But I haven't heard any rumblings, and honestly, I don't think he seems disappointed right now. So that's one to keep an eye on. But again, I don't think it would happen. Linebackers, this isn't a big room. Really only about 5 guys in this room that are going to play. I mean, they only play 2 at a time. So linebacker rooms are not nearly as big as they used to be. We'll probably see Sonny Styles and Cody Simon play this season. I could see a possibility where maybe CJ Hicks continues to struggle learning the defense and being disciplined. Maybe he gets buried on the depth chart. Maybe Gabe Powers passes him up and becomes the 2 deep at linebacker. Maybe, but at the end of the day, I feel like Gabe Powers is most likely right behind Cody Simon. CJ Hicks is right behind Sonny Styles. I feel like CJ Hicks is probably pretty well locked in to stay here. And if he were to transfer, I would imagine it would happen at the end of this next season and not in this spring portal window. Cornerback. I really don't have any concerns with the starters here. Denzel Burke, Davison Igbinosun was Iron Buckeye this offseason. He's bought in. Denzel Burke, he's bought in. I mean, these were two of the guys that were tweeting when Tony Alford left and saying like, what the heck, or like, thumbs down. They were shocked by it, and they don't seem to be the kind of guys that are going to move on from there. And let's also remember, this is Tim Walton's cornerback room. Tim Walton's a very strong recruiter. I have a feeling like Tim Walton's going to keep his guys around. There was a little bit of drama with Jermaine Matthews Jr. in the offseason, tweeting out some like money bag emojis. He stopped tweeting those out, so he must have got the money that he wanted. But assuming he didn't get paid, maybe there's an issue there. However, I think he is pretty well known for his ability when he came in relief of Denzel Burke for a couple games last year. And Calvin Simpson-Hunt, my only thought is maybe Aaron Scott or Bryce West, but I think Bryce West might be hurt right now. If Aaron Scott passes him up in the spring, maybe he sees that a freshman passed him up and he's not going to see very much playing time. He might, but at the end of the day, I would like to believe, similar to Kenyatta Jackson, that he has enough experience. He's been here long enough that he's going to keep that spot ahead of an Aaron Scott or a Bryce West. Safeties. All right, so this is where we get to the Caleb Downs situation. I have no issues with Jordan Hancock or Lathan Ransom. I think both of those guys are locked in. When we get to Caleb Downs, really? I mean, come on, guys. Like, we are really going to let Alabama's fans, their dreams of Caleb Downs, get to us that, Caleb Downs might be leaving and he's not coming to Ohio State now. Guys, he was at Pro Day today talking with CJ Stroud. The foundation has been tweeting about him constantly. He has been in pictures with recruits here on the Ohio State's campus multiple times. This is just so many dreams, pipe dreams from the Alabama fans. Alabama knows that they have lost a ton of guys, and they are just dreaming at this point that Caleb Downs will come back. Guess what? T-Rod is gone, his position coach at Alabama. Nick Saban is gone at Alabama. He loved Ohio State in recruitment. He just wasn't sure about the defense. Now that he's seen a solid year of defense from Ohio State, now that he's seen all of these guys come back and he feels like he can be a part of one of the best defenses in the nation, if not the best defense in the nation, I have literally no worries about Caleb Downs. I would be floored. I would be absolutely shocked if Caleb Downs left Ohio State. I just don't see it happening. Clip this, bookmark it, whatever you want to do. Caleb Downs is not leaving Ohio State. Jahad Carter is another safety that it's possible we can see him leave. He got injured last year, so he was kind of not playing all the whole lot, but he has been on special teams. There are some projections that he could be buried pretty deep in the depth chart. And let's remember, this was a former All ACC player at Syracuse. He made the All ACC team as a safety at Syracuse. So it's not that the guy doesn't have any talent, but if he really believes in his abilities and feels like he can go somewhere else and start and feels like he has an NFL future or something like that, we might see him move on. I tend to believe he seems like somebody who just wants to be in a good situation with Ohio State, and he recognizes the benefits of being here and graduating from here. So I don't really have any concern about that. It could happen. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if he goes, but at the end of the day, I haven't heard anything with him either. So Josh Pate, he's tweeting. There could be rumblings out there of guys leaving. I don't think any big fish at Ohio State are leaving. I think Jack Sawyer has this defense locked down. He knows that this defense needs to stay together and that they can be the best defense in the nation. I think maybe a couple guys on offense, maybe a quarterback, maybe James Peoples, the running back. However, if they do leave, it's not going to be a huge major effect on the college football world. At this point, I'm more worried about the Ohio State recruits for 2025 being more interested in Michigan than I am in the Ohio State players being interested in Michigan themselves. So let me know what you think. I would love to have your thoughts on everything as well. If there's a player that you're concerned about, if you're like, JR, no way, we need to be concerned about Caleb Downs, let me know. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments. If you guys have any questions about, further thoughts on something, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you all. Please do like the video and subscribe. We appreciate it. Check out the Voice of College Football Ohio State and Mark's full Voice of College Football channel. Have a great night.